They've hidden the truth in plain sight. You were never meant to know how powerful you are. Comment, I reclaim my time and energy and space. And if you've ever witnessed your thoughts turn into reality, even once, share your experience in the comments. Your words matter. Welcome. Today we're going to reveal the real alchemy. Not the one of ancient myths or secret societies, but the direct transformation of mind into matter. A truth so fundamental that when you fully understand it, your relationship with reality will never be the same again. Let's start where most people end, with the illusion that thoughts are just electrical firings in the brain, that they're invisible, fleeting, and powerless, that only actions shape reality. But if that were true, how can a single belief, just a thought, immobilize an entire life? How can an internal narrative, completely invisible, dictate whether someone finds love, success, health, or collapses in fear, doubt, or apathy? Real alchemy begins in the mind, and this isn't poetic metaphor, it's physics, it's quantum, it's frequency. Your thoughts emit a measurable electromagnetic field. The heart, the brain, they radiate fields that ripple out and interact with everything. You've heard of the observer effect, right? In quantum physics, the moment an observer looks at a particle, its behavior changes. Think about that for a second. Reality responds to consciousness. That's not magic. That's the framework of this universe. You are an emitter, a transmitter. Your thoughts are codes. Every recurring thought is like a signal broadcast into the fabric of reality. What happens next? Resonance. Patterns match patterns. Vibrations attract likeness. That's why when you're afraid, more fear seems to show up. When you start believing you're abundant, and you truly believe it, new opportunities start arriving. Coincidences multiply. People shift. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. You are constantly alchemizing. Whether you're aware of it or not, your inner world is projecting a blueprint onto the outer world. The question is, are you choosing that blueprint consciously or by default? This is where the idea of crystallization comes in. Crystals form through structure, through repeated pattern, and so do your external results. Thought, when repeated, when emotionally charged, begins to densify. It gathers momentum. It moves from the subtle to the tangible, from the invisible realm of frequency to the visible dimension of matter. This is why fleeting wishes rarely manifest, but deep-seated beliefs, even unconscious ones, materialize constantly. Beliefs are crystallized thought. They hold energy like memory stored in ice, and they shape your life until you melt them, reprogram them, or reinforce them. The ancient alchemists weren't just obsessed with turning lead into gold. They were decoding the inner transformation that turns suffering into wisdom, limitation into expansion, thought into gold. The prima materia, or raw substance they spoke of, was symbolic. And what is more raw, more foundational than your thought energy? They used symbols like the philosopher's stone, elixirs, and transmutation. But these were metaphors for inner mastery, for the mental alchemy that literally reshapes reality. Let's talk mechanics. Every thought you think generates a frequency. Emotions amplify that frequency. This becomes your signature vibration, like a song you're humming all day long, even when you're not aware of it. And just like a radio signal, you attract experiences that match the frequency of that song. If your dominant thoughts are "I'm not enough," "I never have enough," or "life is hard," that's the frequency. That's the vibration that goes out and comes back, like a boomerang. But shift the thought, change the narrative, everything shifts. The true alchemist doesn't need a lab. The real work is invisible. It happens in silence, in choice, in presence. In the moment you choose a new thought, and then repeat it, encode it, saturate it with emotion until it becomes more real than the old pattern. The mind is the original crucible, and belief is the fire that activates transmutation. Let's break this down even deeper. Imagine that every thought you think carves a groove in your neural circuitry. like water etching a riverbed. At first, the stream is shallow, just an idea. But with repetition, it deepens. The current strengthens. Eventually, your thoughts begin to default to this channel, not because it's truth, but because it's familiar. And familiarity is powerful. It becomes your truth. Now, energy follows attention. That's the unspoken rule of consciousness. Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. So when your attention is on lack, on fear, on doubt, you energize it. You animate it. You breathe life into it until it hardens into form. But what happens when you interrupt that stream? When you become conscious of a thought and deliberately choose a new one? You break the spell. You redirect the current. This is the moment of alchemy. Not when the result arrives, but when the thought shifts. That's the hidden doorway most people miss. They wait for reality to change before they believe something new. But real alchemists do the opposite. They believe first. They think ahead of the evidence. That's what crystallizes the new pattern into form. Let's look at this through the metaphor of the seed. A single thought is like a seed planted in the soil of the subconscious. The emotion attached to it, fear, joy, anger, passion, that's the water. Repetition is sunlight. You keep watering it, nurturing it, and eventually it must sprout. And when it does, you call it a situation, a coincidence, a life event. But all of it was birthed in the unseen, in the silence, in the moments no one watched you think. You've been doing this your whole life. The only difference now is awareness. And with awareness comes power. You're not here to be a victim of your mind. You're here to be its master. And not through suppression, but through conscious design. Now let's dive into what crystallization really looks like. When a substance crystallizes, its molecules align into a fixed, repeating pattern. It becomes stable, predictable, physical, and thoughts do the same when energized by emotion and repetition. This is why some people keep repeating the same types of experiences, the same kind of heartbreak, rejection, failure. It's not random. It's a crystallized belief playing out again and again, like a broken record. Until it's broken, consciously. Here's the uncomfortable truth most ignore. Your outer world is the reflection of your dominant inner story. It's not a punishment, it's feedback. Pure feedback. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? The alchemist asks, what thought pattern did this arise from? Because once you trace it back to its source, you're no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You're at the center of creation. This is not just mindset, this is metaphysical architecture. And no, it's not instant. Real transmutation is gradual, intentional, and requires presence. But the results compound. Once a new thought begins to crystallize, it ripples through your relationships, finances, health, creativity, everything. The change may be invisible at first, but then the energy shifts. You notice new synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, people treating you differently, reality echoing back the new code. Because that's what thoughts are, codes, encoded vibrations that inform the matrix of reality. And once you become the coder, you are no longer the program. Thoughts are invisible blueprints, and your feelings are the architect's tools. Together, they create structures in the invisible until those structures get dense enough, habitual enough, consistent enough to become what we call real life. But here's the glitch in most people's process. They keep trying to build new lives on top of old foundations. They try to force wealth while still vibrating in lack. They script affirmations while still believing in their unworthiness. They visualize love while still identifying as someone abandoned. And so, the structure collapses. Not because manifestation doesn't work, but because they were building with mismatched materials. Real alchemy is not about layering new paint over a crumbling wall. It's demolition first. Burning the false self, the version of you that was programmed by wounds, by culture, by fear, and then rising from the ashes with intention. If that sounds mystical, it's because it is. But mystical doesn't mean imaginary. Mystical means hidden to the five senses. And yet, it influences everything. You want proof. Let's talk brainwaves. When you're in high beta, stressed, anxious, mentally looping, your body is reacting as if it's under threat. And in that state, your energy contracts. You disconnect from creativity, intuition, clarity. The mind becomes chaotic, the body tense. And from that vibration, only more survival-based experiences can be attracted. But when you shift into alpha and theta, calm, centered, receptive, your field expands. You become magnetic. Thoughts slow down, emotions stabilize. And this is the frequency where visualization becomes creation, where thought becomes command. This is the true laboratory of the alchemist, the inner stillness where energy is moved consciously. Think of it this way. If thoughts are the seed, and emotion is the water, then frequency is the soil. You cannot grow high-frequency outcomes in low-frequency soil. You must match the vibration of what you want before it arrives, not after. Because once it arrives, it's already the past. Creation always happens in the now. Let's go deeper. Have you ever had a thought so persistent, so emotionally charged, that it physically weighed on you? That wasn't just stress, that was mass. Energy becoming dense enough to be felt. That's how powerful your consciousness is. You are literally capable of turning formless energy into weight, pressure, symptoms. Now imagine reversing that. Imagine sending a clear, elevated frequency into the field, not as fantasy, but as command. With belief, with clarity, with sustained attention. You wouldn't just feel lighter, you'd become lighter. Reality would begin to bend around your new internal shape. That's not wishful thinking, that's quantum alignment. And this brings us to the silent killer of alchemy, contradiction. You can't think I am powerful once in the morning and then dwell on fear, jealousy, and doubt all day and expect transformation. You can't do a 10-minute visualization and then spend the rest of the day being a passive receiver of other people's stories, energies, and projections. The field doesn't respond to occasional clarity. It responds to consistency. This is why the ancient alchemists were disciplined. They weren't playing. They weren't daydreaming. They were cultivating inner coherence so strong that reality had no choice but to bend. It's not about control. It's about congruence. Your outer life must be a mirror of your inner alignment. And if it isn't, you don't force the mirror to change. You change what's standing in front of it. You dissolve the old code, the distorted belief, the inherited limitation, and you imprint something new, something yours. This is how thoughts crystallize. Not through luck, not through hoping, but through knowing. Knowing that reality is not fixed. Knowing that your identity is fluid. Knowing that matter is just mind, slowed down enough to be seen. So if you're still trapped in a loop, financially, emotionally, spiritually, stop looking for the external exit. It doesn't exist. The real escape is internal, not forward, inward. Because once you shift the inner structure, reality reconfigures. Not because the universe suddenly likes you more, but because you became a match for the version of yourself that was already waiting. This is the real meaning of manifestation. It's not magic, it's mechanics, energetic mechanics, and the most crucial part of this entire process, the one piece most people ignore, is identity, because you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. So if you're trying to call in abundance while subconsciously identifying as someone who's not worthy of it, you create resistance. If you're imagining success, but still rooted in a belief that says, people like me never make it, your own subconscious becomes your gatekeeper. This is why affirmations without transformation feel fake. Because you can't lie to the field. You can't outscript your energy. But here's the liberation. You don't need to force change. You just need to become aware of the current code you're broadcasting. And once you see it, clearly, honestly, without shame, you have the power to rewire it. Awareness is the first transmutation, acceptance is the second, and aligned action is the third. That's the triangle of creation. This is the alchemical formula most people miss. Conscious thought plus coherent emotion plus consistent identity equals crystallized reality. And it works both ways. So if you don't like your current reality, trace it back. What thoughts were you consistently feeding it with? What emotional tone were you broadcasting? What identity were you reinforcing? The answers are there, hidden in plain sight, but now let's flip the formula forward. Let's say you do want to crystallize a new reality. What then? You must become the version of you who already lives it. Not think like them, not imitate them. Become them, speak like them, decide like them, move like them, detach like them. Because that version of you isn't hypothetical, it already exists. In the field, in the quantum, in potential. Your job is to align with it so fully that the external world has no option but to catch up. And this is where most give up, because reality doesn't always shift instantly. It tests your commitment. It checks if you'll hold the frequency before the evidence shows up. It asks, will you keep believing when there's no proof yet? That's the crucible. That's the fire. And only the real alchemist walks through it without flinching. Why? Because they know that physicality is just the final echo, the last ripple of a decision made in consciousness long ago. And if they hold their tone, their vibration, their identity, the echo will come. It must. Law. But you can't fake this. You can't pretend to be abundant while resenting every dollar spent. You can't speak love while being addicted to drama. You can't visualize healing while emotionally rehearsing your illness. You either choose coherence or chaos. So choose. Become the silent master of your energy, not someone who reacts, but someone who directs. Not someone who wishes, but someone who decides. This is the hidden power the world never taught you. Because if you knew this, truly knew it, you'd become unstoppable. You'd stop looking for saviors, signs, or permission. You'd stop outsourcing your worth. You'd stop bending for a system that thrives on your forgetting. Instead, you'd reclaim your role as the architect of the invisible. You'd realize that the real magic isn't in rituals or crystals or codes, though they have their place. The real magic is in the stillness between your thoughts, in the split second where you choose to remember instead of react. That's where matter is born. That's where timelines collapse. That's where transformation begins. So from this moment on, become a conscious alchemist, not a passive thinker, a deliberate one. Watch your thoughts as if they were spells. Feel your emotions as if they were fuel. Treat your identity as if it were a transmitter, because it is. And ask yourself daily, is this thought building the reality I desire, or the one I'm trying to escape? Because your world isn't something you walk into, it's something that grows from you, rooted in thought, watered by feeling, shaped by belief. And when that becomes your way of being, matter becomes your mirror. No theory, just truth. And the truth is, you were the alchemist all along.